How to win at the Cheltenham Festival? It is the question on everyone's lips as we approach the big week in March. And
Paisley Park has moved on by 2 lengths with Aidan Coleman.
Priced Up have sent Aidan Coleman to a cinema in South London to watch some of your big rides at the festival of the past. Winners.
Put the Kettle On, who takes the Racing Post Arkle.
Put the Kettle On, wins again at the festival.
Frustrating losers.
Constitution Hill, a class apart.
As well, even one race you weren't even riding in.
This is the champion, Galopin de Jonbon.
I mean, this must be every sportsman's dream, isn't it? Get into a cinema, watch some of your best moments.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it now. Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to have a few. I thought I probably should have had a few more at Cheltenham over the years, but I wouldn't count myself unlucky. I had some great days there, and looking forward to looking back over them.
Well, let's get into it now. We're going to look at racing tactics, the kind of horses that you need for certain races, the specific troubles and trials you can get into in these festival races. And we're going to kick off with the famous Paisley Park win in the 2019 Stayers Hurdle.
£83,000. About to come forward towards the tape.
You, of course, on Paisley Park, sent off 11-8 favourite. I mean, you first rode Paisley Park in October 2018 off 140 in a handicap hurdle at Aintree. Would you have had any idea?
Oh, absolutely.
That day this
no,
would happen?
absolutely none. The whole journey with him is like is amazing, really. Like to start off at in a handicap at Aintree and then end up in the Stayers Hurdle, and then obviously we had 4 or 5 more glorious years afterwards. So I think of all the wins, obviously most of the wins are Paisley because they're particularly big races. They're all special in their own way, but I think if anyone asks for a career highlight, I always say this race, because it was just a compilation of things. Like, he was the kind of talking horse of the festival, is in one of the bankers, obviously the story with Andrew and everyone else, and he went and won then as well, wasn't it? So it was, I think this is, I said, if I had to nail down one moment in my career, it's this.
What's the kind of expectation and the pressure that comes with it? Because every festival, it feels like there's like a people's horse, a horse that everyone wants to win the most, not necessarily from a betting perspective, but just, as you say, the story with Paisley Park in terms of the progression that season, unbeaten. The owner, Andrew Gemmell, incredible story with him, and Emma Lavelle, a trainer who wasn't necessarily used to getting festival favourites like this. And the burden of also being, as you know, one of the most bet horses of the week. As a jockey, do you feel that?
Oh, very much so. But it's kind of like it's the ride you want, if you know what I mean. You spend. This is my first winner at the festival for a good few years, actually. And every time you go into Cheltenham, you want these horses. And obviously, after this guy, they came a little bit more frequently. But at the same time, I spent 10, 12 years probably going there wanting to ride a good horse. But I suppose he brought all the angles of pressure because, as I said, he was the people's horse. He was obviously the favourite. And I really couldn't see him getting beat either. I really, I know it's a big field, but he was by far the best. And yeah.
When you say you couldn't see him getting beat, I mean, this is still the Cheltenham Festival. It's the Stayers Hurdle. It's a big field. There are obstacles obviously in your way, both in terms of the hurdles, but also the way the race is going to shape up. What are you thinking here? Like, early on in the race, is it a case of just stalking the pace, making sure you get a clear run?
Yeah, exactly. But the thing with the new courses, they're very different courses, the new and the old. You'll very rarely kind of get traffic on this course, and even if you do, there's so much time to kind of get over it or navigate around it, whereas on the old course it would be very tricky. You'd be very beatable on a day like this on the other track, because it's just a bit tighter and you've got so much little time from turning into the line. When he usually kind of hits his flat spot and gets going, if he got stopped there, he'd really be in trouble, whereas in places like on this course, it was made for him.
And how aware are you? So here you've got Sam Spinner in second, who you'd, I think, beaten pretty clearly last time out of Cheltenham in January. Are you knowing that you've got the beating horse like that? Do you have them in your sights, or is it a case of just kind of running your own race?
It's a bit different with Paisley because he kind of puts himself where he wants to be. If you look where I am now, I'm happy enough for him, but at the same time, if I wanted to go closer, he probably wouldn't want to go. I wouldn't go closer anyway. I think we were going plenty of a gallop that I was quite happy, but he kind of puts himself where he puts himself. So the tactics there aren't as relevant as you think, because it's all down to pace really with him. And I was very happy they were going enough for gallop, but they're always going to come back. But as I said, I don't think anything could have beat him this day in this field, if you know what I mean. Like, you had Faugheen, who can't remember what age he was, and Sam Spinner was fancied the year before, wasn't he? Yeah. And ran well, and he was just by far the best.
Yeah, and we've seen kind of different horses win the stayers in different ways since this. Obviously, Teahupoo last year, Flooring Porter from the front.
Yeah.
Do you think there is the right way to go about winning the stayers hurdle? How do you expect Teahupoo to them to try and go about it this time around?
I think he looks very straightforward. He's made for the race, isn't he? And I think on this course it really doesn't matter as long as you don't go too fast, because it's a proper stamina sapping course, and like every race, it's all down to pace, if you know what I mean. Danny got the fractions right on Flooring Porter when he won twice in him, and from the front, and horses won from behind. Paisley won from kind of middle to back. So I think it's a very straightforward race, really. I think that echoes this course. I think tactics more come into play on the old course, not the new course.
And we're kind of getting into the moment now where Paisley Park has that kind of famous, I guess, flat spot, you could call it, where I was on course that day, like everybody else there. I'd back Paisley Park at some silly short price. And there are moments where he gives you a bit of a scare, where you can see you're getting a little bit busy here. But what I was going to say is, from the eye, for us that don't, we look like maybe there's some trouble or a flat spot.
Yeah, I suppose with him here, as I said earlier, it's very rare on this course you're going to meet traffic. There might be horses in front of him, but it's always going to open up at some stage. And thing with him, he was hard to get going, but when he got going, he really did have a really strong turn of foot. He was quite a fast horse. Of course he was at this level. No matter what they're running over, they're fast. It's all relative, isn't it? But he still gets there too soon every time he runs. But yeah.
Do you feel he's getting there too soon here? I mean, it's just that turn.
The thing with him is you don't have a choice, because you spend the whole race trying to get him going. So then when he gets going, and he was so clever, I didn't want to. If you said no, you'd be interested to see what he'd do. You could stick two fingers up at you.
Heart in the mouth here a little bit.
Yeah, he was all wrong at the last. Probably he just got there at the wrong time. If he was there a little bit earlier, he would have really had a look at it and weighed it up himself, because he just got to the front and he'd realised he just got to the front. I think he just stargazed. It just came up at the wrong time. But look, he was a very clever horse and a brilliant jumper, and he loved that hill. Shame we didn't win another stairs hurdle, to be fair. I think he deserved a bit more, but anyway, what did we win? 4 cleaves?
Yeah.
Or was it 3 cleaves? No.
So yeah, Put the Kettle On's Arkle now. Firstly, with Put the Kettle On, the thing to note is that she was just the second mare to win an Arkle, and then became the first and only mare to win a champion chase. Again, from a jockey's perspective, does that cross your mind? Are you going into it kind of in the knowledge that there's some history at stake, I guess?
No, nothing to do with the mares really, because no, that would never have crossed my mind. I suppose on the opposite side to something like a Paisley Park, this mare got no credit, I thought, for anything she achieved, really. She was unfancied when she won the Arkle trial there. I think she was nearly outside her 4 and she won. And then she was more or less unfancied for this. Can't remember what price exactly, but
16 to 1.
Yeah, so there's 6 or 7 ahead of her in the betting. And the next season was pretty much the same as well, when she comes to the champion chase. And I don't think she ever got any credit. And her journey as well was quite interesting, because she had lovely owners, syndicate, nice and lovely people. And she started this season running in the summer, running around Kilbeggan and Wexford and all them. And she ends up winning an Arkle. She was a really special mare, but the one thing with her is her jumping was absolutely unbelievable. She was so accurate, it was ridiculous.
In terms of the first time you rode her was at Cheltenham a couple of months before. After winning that race, was it always did you have to ensure you were going to pick up the ride for the festival, or was it always going to be the case?
Well, I suppose it would have been interesting if Notebook, who was behind her there, was in the round, because obviously at the time he was more fancied than her, and I think he'd won the Irish Arkle by a margin, and Rachel was always going to stay on him. But if he didn't run, maybe not, because obviously I only picked her up as a spare originally. But I suppose after this, it was cemented. It was my ride, which was great, because we had another. I suppose we had a fabulous 18 months, didn't we?
And the Arkle in itself as a race, as a novice chase. I mean, it must be, in terms of these are pretty inexperienced horses being dropped into the deep end in terms of the race itself. How do you go about managing, these are horses that haven't jumped that many?
Well, that was the key to her. She was quite tricky to get on and all that. In the preliminaries, she wasn't the easiest, but she was so straightforward to ride once you got on her. Her jumping was, and you could put her anywhere you wanted. She wasn't the fastest in the world. She's probably nearly at top speed there, but at the same time, she had a really high cruising speed and would have kept going.
And the race tactics, both for the Arkle and as we'll see later, the Champion Chase was very much to try and make all or at least go from the front. What is it about certain horses that suit front running and certain horses, as you see in Paisley Park, you have to be a bit more patient?
I suppose it's just more their nature. She was a real forward-going mare, didn't like any fuss or anything like that, and she was really straightforward and a brilliant jumper, so there was no point really riding her any different. But also as well, it's kind of it's a different track as well. This kind of ride really suits this track, not so much on the other course because it's a lot stiffer. But she was great. It's interesting here, I just seen Paul dropping back, so I said I want that rail now because it makes the line down to the second last a lot easier, a lot handier, and it probably nearly won me the race because I kind of made Mark play his hand a little bit earlier, because if he wouldn't have wanted to be where upsides me anyway. It would have been too soon for him to be up there, but I suppose.
Well, this is a great battle between Put the Kettle On and Fakir Duderi. Fakir Duderi went off second favourite, I think. So probably at this stage, I'd have thought the exchanges would have been in running favourite. Are you always confident? How do you?
No, I suppose not really, because obviously I could feel him coming up. But from here now, I suppose she got up the hill really well in the November meeting, so she was never really going to get beaten. Look at her ears and that. She's very straightforward and tries hard, and it wouldn't matter if she was in front or behind or whatever. She was really individual. Didn't really mind being in front or following, really. So. And
what's the feeling like when you know you've been in a tough finish and a battle up the hill and you come away?
That was great, yeah. To win an Arkle, any of the race at the festival, I suppose, as I said, all my best days of my career probably would have been these races, if you know what I mean, with a few other big winners thrown in. But any day you win at Cheltenham is special, so that was great.
Right now, Put the Kettle On's Champion Chase the year after, and very similar tactics in terms of the position that you take up here. Obviously having won the Arkle the year before, but still came into the race relatively unfancied because of Chacun Pour Soi going off 8-13 favourite before we knew that maybe he wasn't his best at Cheltenham, at the Cheltenham Festival. You're going into this, given what had happened the year before and given your relationship with the horse, did you still feel relatively confident?
Oh, she was always going to run well. There was never going to be too many in front of her, if any. Obviously, it was hard to say I fancied her to win, but at the same time, she was a sure thing to be in the money. I can't remember the price she was really, but again, if you look at her, the key to her is her jumping. It's so accurate. It's ridiculous. Like long, short. Just look at her, like in and out, really quick. Had a bit of scope. She wasn't a big mare, and she definitely wasn't robust, but. She just had a lovely way of going. And again, like as I said, I thought it's a crime that she got no credit really, I don't think, or not a lot. And it's funny because it was always, she wasn't even the best mare in Henry de Bromhead's stable because a certain honeysuckle was around at the same time. So the poor thing was very underrated in my opinion. But I didn't. I adored her, and she's definitely one of my all-time favourites.
I mean, how much of a test of jumping is the Champion Chase? We hear every year that some horses, there are doubts about jumping ability coming into this because it is, it's such a big test. And when you look at the previous winners of the Champion Chase, generally they're all magnificent jumpers. I mean, when you look at, for example, Jonbon, a horse that you know very well, how do you see the fit?
Well, I suppose the thing with Jonbon is what's going to beat him this year, and his jumping is very, you make a little mistake. I know he made one significant one at Cheltenham last year, but in general, if he does make the odd one, it's nothing too bad, and I think he's probably by far the best this year. That shouldn't really matter, even though I don't think he's at his best around Cheltenham. Yeah, but we might get to that later.
Yeah, we might too.
But look at her; she's just a fantastic jumper. She never it was very hard for her to miss a fence because she had everything in her locker, as in a bit of scope if she needed, and she was extremely clever. So, look, in and out, gone.
And how important do you think festival form is? Obviously, it helps that she won the Arkle the year before on the old course, and going into the race, does that give you the confidence? Unlike, for example, Chacun Pour Soi.
I suppose there was talk of her running, and a lot of people said she should have run in the Mayor's Chase on the Friday, which is a different course, and. But Henry and the owners just said, and rightly so, said, well, the Arkle horses surely have, the right to go for the Champion Chase, and that's the way they went. And I don't think although she won a Champion Chase, I wouldn't be convinced she would have been a shoe-in to win the Mayor's Chase because it's a different track. The only similarities are they're at the same place, the same stand at the finish. That's about it, really. Otherwise, they're tactically completely different, and there's no guarantee she would have been as good around here.
Are you getting aware here of what's going on behind you?
Which, yeah, she always kind of went slightly right. I could hear a little bit of shouting there, but I knew Paul. I could see. I was trying to do what I did in the Arkle. Like I got in ahead of Paul.
Yeah.
He had no real option but to wait, but he knew I was going to go slightly right at the second last anyway, and he was straight there. Probably wasn't, in hindsight, probably the winning of the race for me, because he didn't get up the hill, but that wasn't known at the time, was it?
Is there a part of you when you see, this moment where you see Cheltenham Festival coming up the inside, where you think this is probably done?
More, yeah, definitely, 100%. But and it's very rare that a horse will pass you out in the race and you can come back and pass it again. It doesn't really happen very often, and luckily this was the case here. But like as I said, she loved the hill.
You always see the moment where you realise it's on.
Just there, and then I could hear Nuber Negra, but he probably didn't have enough time.
Amazing.
Yeah, no, what a
Wins
mare.
again at the festival, and the mare fights them off to take the championship.
Right now, the 2022 Supreme, and
Right, here we go. Flags raised again.
I mean the Supreme. We heard Nicky Henderson after this race talk about the impact it has on these young horses. Anyone who's ever been to the festival will know that the buzz before the Supreme is immense. When you're riding an inexperienced novice hurdler, how difficult is it to get them calm and to get them relaxed enough to I mean, you see here the pace that the Jonbon and Dysart Dynamite go off.
Yeah, like I suppose Jonbon wasn't the calmest horse, especially at this stage of his career. He was a little bit more precocious. He wasn't as bad as people made out by any means, but I suppose this year, look, we got it wrong, 100% got it wrong, but obviously that's only in hindsight, knowing how good Constitution Hill has been. But before this, he'd only had kind of a reputation. But I'd seen a lot of Constitution Hill at home, and he had a lot of gears, and I knew he was faster than Jonbon. And if we went an even gallop and turned into the straight, he would have just quickened past me and gone. So I just thought the only chance we had of beating him was to make it a real end-to-end gallop, because I knew Jonbon would keep going. I thought he would anyway, and take the gear, the blunt Constitution Hill speed, a turn of foot. But look, it didn't work. Hindsight, we would have just went around and probably followed Constitution Hill, had an easier race and been second. But we had to try something, and I suppose hindsight, we would have went for the 2.5 mile race, because he was pretty unbeatable.
I was going to say, it's interesting, given that you were on the second favourite, the third favourite behind Dysart Dynamo, because he went off joint favourite at 9-4 with Constitution Hill, but the stablemate of the superstar.
Yeah.
Did you? I mean, as you said, you'd seen him work at home. Was everyone aware within the kind of Henderson camp that what Constitution Hill was and was going to be?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they were. Like, his work was spectacular, and he'd won the Tolworth before this, and he'd worked well at Kempton. I just thought, like, this kind of pace, and he might not have to quicken up, but it didn't work. Spectacularly failed, but look, at the same time, we wouldn't have beat him anyway, so we're going to be second. And at the same, and it's testament to Jonbon as well. He probably had too hard a race, and he's still come back and pretty much been unbeaten since this. So there was no long-lasting damage done.
Yeah.
But it was just we had to try something to beat him, and it didn't work.
And what do you think for this year's Champion Hurdle? We don't know at the time of recording what's going to happen with the two mares and whether they're going to line up in the mares or in the Champion Hurdle. But if they do go for this, what's the best? You've tried and failed to get Constitution Hill beat around the old course of Cheltenham. What's the way to do it?
I suppose I don't know really.
Can you do it?
It's just whether he's as good as he was.
Yeah.
After all his ailments last year, he had a very tricky season. He was obviously not right for most of it, and then he had the colic. So, look, if he's on form and he's back to this level of form or whatever, he's unbeatable. They can do whatever they want. They will not beat him. But if there is any chinks in his armour, it is only because he just last season might have just left its mark. But I don't think his form this year, he doesn't look as visually impressive, does he? But at the same time, I'm adamant this is the best horse I've ever seen. So,
is there a moment here where you see Nico go clear and you just think, what
soul destroying, really? It was soul destroying, because obviously Jonbon is and he's proven to be since an extremely talented horse, and look. But at the same time, it just goes to show how good the two horses were, and in particular how good Constitution Hill was. Mind you, if I knew that I had no chance of beating him, the distance wouldn't have been half what it was. But at the same time, we had to try something, because he was just a faster horse, Constitution Hill. So we just tried to make it more of a test, and it really didn't work. Spectacularly failed, but they both, at least the main thing about this is it didn't have any detriment to Jonbon's further career. He's been pretty unbeatable ever since.
Okay, now this is a race you didn't ride in. It's last year's Gold Cup. Galopin de Champs, of course, winning yet again, and will line up as odds-on favourite again this time around. I mean, in terms of a test of a horse's ability and jumping ability, how does the Gold Cup rank? What makes it so special and so tough?
Well, I suppose when you get to, if you line up in a Gold Cup within reason, like you're an extremely talented horse and you've had loads of good runs and plenty of experience, it's very rare. You know, if you shouldn't be there, you'll be out the back of the TV in 2 fences. But these horses are very assured jumpers in general, and it's just more how it works out tactically. And the one thing about Galopin de Champs is it doesn't really matter what way it works out tactically, because he can do anything you want, which is, he's a remarkable horse actually. Like, it sounds bad, like was he 10 or 11 now, that he could even be better this year than he's ever been. I think his form is better now than he's ever been, you know. I put Factifile up at the start of the year as my horse to follow, and you know, I thought he'd be the one, and he won the John Durkin, which ended up being a race for the ages. But I remember thinking that Galopin de Champs over 2.5 around Punchestown, you know, a track where he doesn't really bring his best to all the time. I thought that's arguably his best run in the John Durkin yet, and it's proven with his next 2 runs, and he's really put everything else in his place, and I really can't see what's going to beat him in this year's.
Do you think he gets the kind of credit that he deserves?
No, not at all. I don't know why, but no, definitely not.
Maybe do you think another win this year might be the thing that finally makes people realise that we've got one of the greats?
Yeah, I think the people that count give him the credit he deserves, and everyone has massive respect for him. But no, he's not. He's not like a best mate or whatever talked about. But that's just the way it is. I don't think it really matters deep down, does it?
And what, in terms of the kind of riding tactics in the Gold Cup itself, is there any right way or wrong way? Is there any position you don't want to be in?
No, I like every race. I'm adamant it's all depending on the speed they go. They go too fast, go back. If they go too slow, go forward. I really think it is simple as that. Any race, any track. And I said, this horse, like, if there was no speed, he could be in front, and if there's loads of speed, he could be back where Cork Rambler is. You know, that's the beauty of this horse, and that's why I see it so hard that he can get beat this year, barring like accidents or him. You know, if he turns up and he gets a clear run, he won't get beat. He won't get beat because you can literally do anything on him.
I mean, there will be a few, I guess, because of his profile and because of what he's done at the festival before, there'll be jockeys lining up knowing that it's kind of their job to get him beat in a way. I mean, is there anything you could do or any way you could see trying to somehow bring his level down?
It's a dangerous thing to try that, because you obviously have to try and win the race yourself, and it's hard enough to ride one horse in the Gold Cup, never mind trying to ride 2.
And I guess it's kind of what we spoke about with the Supreme.
Yeah, exactly. You just have to try and do something. But I would imagine anything like that would be late on in the race. If Paul's in the pocket or something like that, then you might tactically, like you do in any race, try and make it more difficult for them. But at a stage like this in a race, you're not really going to, be silly for JJ or Darragh O'Keefe or, Charlie Deutsch to be looking at Galopin de Champs and trying to do something now, because there's no guarantee they're going to win either. Yeah. So anything like that is usually kind of late on, and see how it goes. Yeah.
So anything in this year's field that you can see springing some kind of a challenge?
Look, it's going to be a challenge. Of course, you're never going to be given a Gold Cup, but there's no reason or there's no form that any other horse has that's going to beat him. Simple as. I'd imagine Factifile will probably go for the Ryanair, won't he? Maybe not. And then what else is there really? And
from obviously every festival win is going to be incredibly special. How much would it have meant to you to have won a Gold Cup? I mean, how would that compare to, you've won a Champion Chase, you've won an Arkle, you've won the Stayers. Is there an element where the Gold Cup is kind of the big prize, or is it? Yeah,
well, it's, in my opinion, people ask the Gold Cup or Grand National. It's a very hard one to answer. I'd probably pick the Grand National because it's just a bit more, but Gold Cup would always come second of races you want to win, and I can see why it's on the top of most people's win, or even over the Grand National. I think it's... Look, it's just Gold Cup, isn't it? It doesn't need any introduction from me anyway. But this horse, just look at it, you can just go anywhere you want. He's just like, there's literally nothing, whatever about being the best horse, he's just the easiest to ride in the race as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's been brilliant, hasn't he?
Can you talk through, I mean, in terms of his kind of jumping, you know, what is it about him that makes him so clinical and so...
Look, to be fair, if you looked at all these horses in this race, they're probably all just as equally as impressive a jumper, to be honest. They're fast to slow goes, and he's actually a very good jumper, but he can be a bit low, that fast to slow. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter now. He's not running this year.
We see the loose horse here kind of create some havoc within the race. Can that be... You know, how difficult is it when you've got a loose horse kind of at the business end of a race, impacting what's going on at the top?
Well, it's never ideal, but I suppose at the same time there's not a lot. Like, even though Paul would be well aware of the loose horse, there's nothing you can do about it, if you know what I mean. So you kind of have to forget about it. But look how quick, you know, a slight mistake there, but he was in and out, and away he goes. He's just. But again, horses in races like this, they're always really good jumpers. It's very rare that you'd have a bad jumper in a Gold Cup. You might have something that might be prone to a mistake. But they'd be good jumpers in general, and he definitely is.
Yeah, let's see the loose horse. Almost kind of gives him a turn to the race.
Yeah, that's never ideal there.
No.
But it doesn't look like he's going to go around the third last. I'm sure Paul's pretty... I prefer him not to be there, but I'm sure he's pretty happy. It's fine, isn't it?
It's amazing here to think Quite Rambler stayed on for third.
Yeah, he did like the hill though, didn't he?
Yeah.
But there was not one part of this race that you would have been worried at all about galloping the Jonbon. I think that's the trait of most of his races. Unless there was a repeat of his, is it the Turners?
Yes.
Which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But there you go. But again, like, look, his jumping is he's just brilliant horse, isn't he? Brilliant horse, and I think hopefully, all being well, I'll be cheering him on, and he might do the same.
Look at that.
This year.
I mean, that jump at the last, I mean, that's...
Kind of the stride he met it on the Turners as well. He just fell over, didn't he? You know? Loose horse never left him alone.
I mean, when you're coming up to the last in a chase with a lead, because you've got to be so careful. Not, you know, how do you approach it? Do you send them?
Oh, in the Gold Cup, you go forward. Really, yeah, you go forward. You don't really, although he's the best horse in the race, you don't really have the luxury of you know, but again, it's different on every horse is different, but these horses are really good jumpers in general, and like they're so much good horses are easier to ride, they're harder to get on basically, so it's they're jumping, you know, it depends on the animal, but he's very good either way, so Paul wouldn't have been too pushed, bar something freaky like happened in the Turners that day.
So Aidan, how did it feel reliving 3 great moments and one, you know, where we witnessed the birth of a great, but you were seeing it from 22 lengths behind?
yeah, you probably seen close. You were probably closer to him at the end than I was, wherever you were standing. Yeah, that was a trait with Jonbon. I think I followed him home his next 3 runs on Epatante actually, so I saw a lot of him, but the wrong side of it. And no, but look, he was pretty unbeatable. So at least I didn't get my horse beat. Probably got the tactics wrong on the day, like we discussed, but at the same time, it wasn't the winning or losing of the race, and it definitely didn't affect Jonbon's career after, so you know, it's no big deal, but the winners are great.
Which was the best moment of the lot?
Oh, like I've always said, the 2019 Stayers Paisley, you know, that was by far the best day of my life, I think.